Shalom, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash, and double honor to our elders and apostles of great millstone that taught us his truth. Sak Yawasap, and I'm on RT News, and there's an article here, and it says, member states press EU to ease Russia's sanctions. Now, with the conflict between Russia and the Ukrainians, America stepped in, which America is Babylon the Great, the whore, the great city, spiritually Sodom and Egypt, Nineveh, various different titles in the Bible. All right, lets us know that America is basically these ancient kingdoms revived. Now, with the war tension between Russia and Ukraine, America stepped in to aid Ukraine in this war, sending billions of dollars, giving them weapons, missiles, so on and so forth to fight against Russia. And with that, America has enabled, various sanctions on Russia. And what those sanctions have done, because America is a part of NATO and the EU, with America being a part of that, it makes up this beast system, this kingdom ruled by the Edomites. And with these sanctions on Russia, it's affecting imports of grain, food, fertilizer, oil, natural energy, and particular things feed into these European countries that are part of the EU. So now what the EU is saying is, the different member states, they want to ease the Russian sanctions, because while EU is on the side of America, they're suffering, particular energy crisis. Cost of living is ridiculous. Like I said, energy is expensive. Certain food, fertilizers, goods, and services that, they depend on, especially throughout these winter months, they're no longer getting it. So when I, examined this article, it reminded me of what's written in Revelation 17. I'm going to read a little bit of this, get Revelation 17 and close out. Lord willing, be edifying. It says, some nations are reportedly urging the exemptions of food exports from the country. It says leading EU is the European Union. All right, that represents the toes of this beast system. All right, the 10 toes. Right now, it's about 28 member states that's a part of the EU. Now, you do have EU members that are a part of NATO. All right, but then you have some members that's a part of NATO that's not a part of the EU. But in all actuality, they all, in bed with each other. It says leading EU member states have been calling on Brussels to amend sanctions on Moscow to make a clear exemption for supplies of Russian grain and fertilizer, the Financial Times reported on Wednesday. According to an EU position paper seen by the FT, Germany, France, and Netherlands. Germany is one of the stronger members of the 10 toes, the EU, because when you read in Daniel, the second chapter, and Lord willing, we'll get it real quick. When you read in Daniel, the second chapter, let me see. This app goes a little slow. When you go to Daniel, the second chapter, everything is about the prophecies. When you read in Revelation 19, it speaks about the testimony of the Lord. Yahushua is a spirit of prophecy. So when you go to Daniel, the second chapter, Nebuchadnezzar has this dream that he wanted, his wise man to basically decode, all right, to give the reason behind it. And none of them could break down the dream. So what Nebuchadnezzar did was he put an order out to kill all the wise men in Babylon, and Daniel was one of them. So when Daniel heard the commotion about the king's decree, he was in, he was urged to tell particular guards to let him, give him some time so he can get the information and break down the dream. And in this dream, it went into these kingdoms that was set up. So let's go here. This is Daniel chapter 2, verse 36. It says, this is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Interpretation is the breakdown. Now we're going to go to the main part, this fourth kingdom in the 40th verse, because this fourth kingdom, even the scholars will tell you that this is the Roman Empire. And the kingdom that we're in now is the second leg of Rome. It's the revised Roman Empire. It's the image of the beast. It's the likeness of the Roman Empire. It says, in the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. In fact, the Roman Empire had the iron legions of Rome, and that was the material that they used to, make their weapons. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdue all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. Because when the Roman Empire came into power, it conquered all those, kingdoms. That was all those known kingdoms in that area. It says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron. And this is the time of prophecy that we're in now. We're in the feet of that beast. The legs was the Roman Empire, and the feet is part iron and part clay. That's the time period that we're in now. Once again, whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it as the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And the iron represents, like it says there, the strength. Now, you have nations that's part of the EU that are strong, right? Or, for example, you got Germany. That's one of them. And I believe Spain is another one. Or you could do your research. And it's strong economically. And then you have weaker nations like Portugal, Ireland, Greece. Those are weaker members of the EU. So they rely on the stronger nations to balance out the economy. And then also you have divisions, just like we see here with the article. You have some nations that, want to stand alone, like Brexit. You had Great Britain exiting the European Union. They want to, basically be, their own power. So that's a division there. All right. And these particular things is all written here in the prophecies. All right. So, you're going to have a divide here. It says in the 42nd verse, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. All right. Because like I said, there's going to be that division here. All right. You got strong nations and you have weak nations. It says, and whereas thou sawest from iron, Slakia, and when thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, making different agreements, making alliances and trades. It says, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So amongst these member states, there's going to be division. And like our Lord Yahushua said, a kingdom divided shall not stand. And ultimately, they're going to look at America. Here it is in the European Union, these different countries within that alliance, they're going to be suffering a lot in these winter months. They need certain, things that they export, that they import from these surrounding countries to make sure their economy is moving efficiently. So with America putting sanctions on Russia and on these other countries, they're no longer able to get those goods and service in order for them to, make it through the winter months. So now the EU is like, look, we need to ease these sanctions, and that's going to make America feel some type of way. And that's going to have these member countries of the EU, to pretty much be in a position where they feel like America is hindering them economically. So it says, Let's read a little bit more, and then I'm going to get the featured precept. It says, according to the EU position, I'm here, let's see. According to the EU position paper seen by the FT, Germany, France, and the Netherlands are among the countries urging the European Commissions to change the sanction limits. They argue that the current rules are delaying vital shipments to poor countries. And we know America don't give a fuck, you know? America, they trying to continue to puff at their enemy. They trying to keep their the hegemony throughout the world. And if their different members and allies are not supporting what America wants to do, then that make America look weak. It says the position paper, whose authors reportedly also include Spain, Belgium, and Portugal, these are all member states of the EU, points out that the current legal situation contributes to criticism that sanctions actually hinder trade in food and fertilizer. It states that shipments get stuck in European ports because companies are worried about taking part in transactions with Russian firms. The paper added that financial institutions, insurers, transporters, and wholesalers are reluctant to deal in the export of Russian food fertilizer, disrupting supply chains, because with sanctions, they get heavily taxed. So therefore, they have to raise the amount of their goods, and then that causes pretty much the citizens to either be without particular goods and services, or they have to pay more for goods and services. It says, according to the FT, the document also said that there was now an undesirable situation where the EU is stricter on agriculture transactions than the US and the UK, which seems in contradiction to the general EU policy on food security. So, you know, this is all prophecy. Let's get this over here. Let me see. Slacky. Let's get this over here. In Revelation 17. And Revelation 17 goes into the downfall. It's talking about the Babylon the Great, right? And the downfall. So we're going to start. This is Revelation 17, verse 16. Because Apostle John, he was exiled on the island of Patmos, and he was there as punishment for teaching Yahushua. It was an angel sent unto him to give him revealings of things that will shortly come to pass, future prophecy. And what he saw here is the same thing that Daniel saw, because the prophets, they pretty much saw the same visions, but you know, when you wrote it down, they wrote them down differently. You know, like Daniel the 2nd chapter, Daniel the 7th chapter, those two chapters, they're talking about the same thing, but they're just described differently. Daniel the 2nd chapter is a standing image, whereas Daniel the 7th chapter is talking about different beasts. So, start at 14. Revelation 17:14. These shall make, man, you actually want to read the whole chapter. Let's start at 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings. This is the European Union. Like I said earlier, now it's over 28 members, but they all go back to one of the 10. For example, you have the UK and Ireland. You know, at one point in time in history, that was considered one. They were considered one, and then they broke off. And then you have Spain and Portugal. At one time, that was considered one, but they became into two. So that's how these member states begin to multiply. It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. And this 1 hour is the Most High time. Our elder apostle Tahar, he broke it down to about 42 years. And the EU came into power, I want to say 1958. And before it was known as the EU, the European Union, it was known as the ECC, European, no, the EEC, Salakia, European Economic Communities, and before that, it was known as the Treaty of Rome. You know, you do your history. But 1958, you add the 42 years, that'll bring you to the year 2000. And from 2000 to now, they've been on borrowed time. All right. It says, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast, because they're all on one accord. These shall make war with the Lamb, our Lord Yahushai, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Because the armies of the world, starting with Esau, when the Lord make his second return, they're all going to fight against the Lord Yahushai in the heavens. You know, you read about that in Revelation 12:7. There was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. So it's going to be Yahushai, Michael, and the rest of the innumerable angels coming in on chariots. And then the militaries of the world, you know, Esau is going to be in the midst of World War III. The militaries of the world, they're going to see the Lamb. It's going to look like a so-called alien invasion. And the militaries of the world, starting with Esau, they're going to be in their aircrafts fighting against the Lord Yahushua. But the Lord Yahushua is going to destroy them with laser beam technology. 2 Esdras 13 goes into that. All right, and then also Daniel, the second chapter, it speaks about a great stone smote in that image upon the feet. So Yahushua is coming to destroy this kingdom. Like it says here in Revelation 17:14, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful, the elect. And he answered me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes, nations, and tongues. This whore is America. And American is a great melting pot where you have all these nations come here. You know, you got these different food cuisines, you got these different languages. And everybody desires to come to this place because they're under the impression that this is the best country in the world. But then when you get to pulling back the layers of this place, you see that this place is suffering like all these other countries. They're suffering economically, is inflation, cost of living is high. Everybody got debt. Everybody owes student loans. The jobs ain't paying enough and keeping up with inflation. You know, people are striking at their jobs. They're protesting. You got silent quitting. You got a great resignation. You know, you got all these different things here. It says, in the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, the EU being a part of NATO, being the EU and NATO and America collectively make up this beast system. So the 10 horns, which is the EU, you have member states that are a part of NATO, right? And then you have America and Canada a part of NATO. But then there's NATO member states that's not a part of the EU, but in all honesty, they're all tied together through trade agreements and alliances. It says, in the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, America, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Because during World War III, these countries, these allies that Esau has, they're going to turn against her, and they're going to destroy her with thermonuclear destruction. It says, for the Most High put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast. So the Lord put the spirit on them to fulfill his will. And when we see articles like this with, you know, the EU, you know, they're pretty much going behind America's back to try to make a deal with Russia to lift up these sanctions. You know, that's pretty much a spit in the face to America. You know, this is the catalyst, could very well be the catalyst that will have these EU countries to, you know, start having that tension with America, which will lead to destruction. It says, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Verse 17, for the Most High have put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, unto the words of the Most High be fulfilled the prophecy. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So America has this great influence where all these countries look up to him. You know, America ruleth over the kings of the earth. Western culture, Western philosophy, the American language, the American dollar. All right. You even got women in India, Iran want to snatch off the hijabs and saying, women's freedom, women's equality. So that influence that America have is polluting all these other countries. Why? Because it ruleth over the kings of the earth. It's KFC, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and all these different countries. And these are just little facts that we can draw parallels with to how America influence is seen all throughout the world in these countries. You can go to Thailand right now and see things written in English. Get a food menu, and half of it is in their native tongue, and half of it is in English. This is that dominant place, but it will be destroyed. So, this was just an article read from RT News. Member states press EU to ease Russia's sanctions. And Lord willing, was edifying. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Double honors to our elders and apostles, great millstone that taught us his truth. Shalom, Akim, Wild Bible Ball.